We're starting Be'ezras Hashem Siman Nun Hey in Maamar Shalosh Shevuos, and this is a new subject. It's the subject of Binyan Beis Hamikdash. Before Bias HaMashiach or after.
Because some scientists argue before.
Yeah, well, now we're going to see what the source for that is. Oid Kosav Sham HaRambam Bein Simane HaMelech HaMashiach Shehu Mizera David Yivne Beis Hamikdash. The Rambam says one of the signs, one of the criteria how to identify Mashiach is that he will build the Beis Hamikdash.
Yeah.
Now, just to see this inside the Rambam, it's in the sources 17. This is an old one. This is not from this week, but sources 17, page 1. The Rambam Hilchos Malachim Yud Aleph. Halacha Aleph, Hamelech HaMashiach Asi Lamoid Ulahachzir Malchus David Liyoshna Ulememshal Rishayna Uboyna HaMikdash Umekabetz Nichei Yisrael. Right at the beginning, and then in Halacha Daled also he says that V'im Yamoid Melech Beis David. This is how to identify him. If a king gets up from David's kingdom and hoige b'Torah, he's learning Torah, v'oisik b'mitzvahs k'David aviv, k'fi Torah sheb'chsav shebal peh v'yachuv kol Yisrael leilich ba v'chazik bidko v'yilcham v'yilachem v'chemes Hashem harei zeh b'chezkas shehu Mashiach.
Wow.
That's the first stage. And the second stage, this is page 3 of the sources 21. The second page of the Rambam. Alright, so the Rambam says, Klar, Mashiach is going to do it. But however, this thing the Rambam says is a machlokes.
Who argues?
He's going to see. He's going to say now. Was this a
Rishon at the time of the Rambam?
The Tosfos Yom Tov was later, but the Tosfos Yom Tov Achron. He was the time of the Maharal.
An early Achron.
He was a Talmud of the Maharal, I think.
I think those Achronim still argue with Rishon, but you even find the Maharal arguing with the Rambam at times, even with Rashi.
Right, no, but this is not the Tosfos Yom Tov arguing. The Tosfos Yom Tov is going to bring down a Yerushalmi.
I see.
So what he means to say is that the Rambam's thing, that the Rambam says that Mashiach will build it, is a machlokes in
Shas.
In Shas, yeah.
I see.
And by the way, he doesn't mention it here, but there is already a Gemara in Sukkah and Rosh Hashanah that says that Mashiach, in Bava Kama Daf Samach, that it says that the Beis Hamikdash will come down in fire. It won't be built by any human hands.
Yeah.
And
here's what the Rambam was saying.
So there's different opinions here, but here we're going to bring down this Yerushalmi. The Tosfos Yom Tov Perakei Ma'aser Sheni Mishnah Beis Hevi Divrei Yerushalmi Shekasav Zoysoy Meresh Shebinyan Beis Hamikdash Kodim Lamachus Beis David. The Yerushalmi learns out from this Mishnah in Ma'aser Sheni. We're going to see in a minute why that Binyan Beis Hamikdash will take place before the coming of Mashiach. It's not so pasha that it's going to be like this, like the Rambam says. Ukvar hevesi, I brought already in Rambam Einam Machriya b'shum plukta sheyesh binyanim hoelu. The Rambam in Siman Mem, the Rabbi brought a whole machlokes about whether there's going to be tshuva before the Gul, before Mashiach comes or after, and the Rambam says that there will be tshuva. So he asked, how did the Rambam know the paskin that way? And he's paskin like Rabbi Lezer against Rabbi Yeshua. Usually Allah is like Rabbi Yeshua. And also in this case, it seems like Rabbi Yeshua won the debate. And then he added on also that the Rambam never paskins on things that are not Nogea l'alacha, because it's not Nogea whether there'll be tshuva before Mashiach. We have to do tshuva anyway.
Yeah, so we went before, yeah.
So it's not Nogea l'maisa, so why is the Rambam paskin on it? And he came out over there that the Rambam paskins not that there'll be tshuva before Mashiach, but there'll be tshuva before the kibbutz Galius.
Yes.
And tshuva is one of the simanim of Mashiach. That's what he brought. But over here we could ask the same question: that why is the Rambam paskining that Mashiach is going to build the Beis Hamikdash if that's not Nogea l'maisim? It's not Nogea to us whether Hashem will make it happen before or Mashiach will do it after. So why is the Rambam getting in to a psak in such a thing that's not Nogea l'maisim? It's more like a future nevuah type of thing.
Which according to the law of applies vanazeh anyhow.
So he says, "Heyois shehu apikorsim tolu atzmom gam bozeh." Since the apikorsim have used this Maramokam, they use this Yerushalmi to help them. The Yerushalmi says, "Zoyser meres shebinyan beis hamikdash kodim lamachus beis David."
Right, and that's showing you argue that we're going to have the Beis Hamikdash first.
So he says, "The kivan sheyuchal liyos binyan beis hamikdash." The apikorsim say, "Look, There's a Yerushalmi that says Beferish that the building of the Beis Hamikdash could take place. Kohen the Malchus Beis David. So Yuchal Liyos Gamkein Melucha. Kohen the Malchus Beis David. So they reason that probably that we're allowed to have a state also because
however Beis Hamikdash two separate
the Beis Hamikdash it's two separate things. But I guess their reasoning goes that if you can build the Beis Hamikdash, I mean obviously the Arabs are not going to let you do it. So you have to have a state in order to get it done. Yeah, but even if you bomb it, they're not going to let you do it.
Of course.
The point is you have to have a state and an army, so therefore, look, that's why they use this as a Maramakam. Therefore, I want to explain this a little bit, because before I even say it, let me just say that you could say that the Beis Hamikdash will come down from Shemayim, like the Gemara in Bava Kama, and that's not a steer to, doesn't lead us to believe that there's going to be a Melucha before, right?
Yeah.
So, there's ways to answer it. And as he's going to say later on, Siman Nun Zayin, it could be that this Yerushalmi means that Beis Hamikdash will come before the Malchus Beis David is completely spread around the world. When there's just Mashiach is here, but he hasn't actually spread his kingdom, then Beis Hamikdash will come. But not,
who says this?
I'm saying the Rabbi is going to say in Siman Nun Zayin. He's going to say that. So the Yerushalmi itself doesn't present a real issue. Is really more the Tosfos Yom Tov that's a real issue. So in order to understand what the Yerushalmi and what the Tosfos Yom Tov say, I want to look at it inside. Okay. Okay. Mishnah, Perek Hey Mishnah base of Meiser Sheni. It's on the page 1 of the Maamar Kohen sheets. Kerem Rabbi Haya Oil Yerushalayim Mahalach Yoy Mechel L'Chol Tzad. Kerem Rabbi is in the 4th year of a kerem. You have to redeem the fruits and or bring them to Yerushalayim and eat them. First 3 years is Orla. 4th year, you either bring it to Yerushalayim or you transfer the kedusha onto money, eat the fruits, bring the money to Yerushalayim and spend it. Yeah. Now the Rabbanan made a takana that they wanted people to bring it to Yerushalayim rather than just redeem it. So they said, if you live within 1 day's journey of Yerushalayim, you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. So that the shuk of Yerushalayim should be beautiful with lots of fruit. Because people can't eat their own fruit, they have to spread it around, give it to everybody. Yeah. The Mishnah continues that when there got to be too much fruit in Yerushalayim, and I guess this was driving the price down, so hiskinu, they made a rule, they said, no, you could redeem it wherever you want, even if you're right next to the wall. As long as you haven't gone into Yerushalayim, you can redeem it. Okay, page 2. But they made a condition when they said that you have to redeem it next to the wall. They said a condition. They said that whenever the Chachamim of the generation want to change it back, they can change it back and put back the old takana that you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yossi says no, that wasn't the condition. Page 3. Mishacharav Beis Hamikdash Haya Atnai Hazeh. That the old takana lasted until the Churban. Once the Churban happened, they said, okay, don't bring it to Yerushalayim because there's no point in bringing fruit into Yerushalayim when it's destroyed. But they made a Tnai. Utnai Haya Emasai Shibana Beis Hamikdash Yachzor Adav L'Kamoy Shahaya. When the Beis Hamikdash gets rebuilt, it will go back. So the question is going to be, the Yerushalmi was bothered by a question here that why do you have to make a Tanai? The whole reason why they made a Tanai was because they're afraid that there won't be a Bezdin at that time that's able to put back the Takana. Because you can't reverse what the earlier Bezdin does unless you're greater than them. So let's say the Bezdin of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, for example, he was at the time of the Churban. Let's say he said, when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, he said, don't bring the fruit to Yerushalayim, right? So if you're not greater than him, how could you overturn his takana? So he was afraid of that. So he said, okay, I'm making a t'nai. My takana is only as long as the Beis Hamikdash is not rebuilt. Once it's rebuilt, automatically it comes back into effect. Okay? So we see from now, the question is, what do you mean? When the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, there's going to be Mashiach and Eliyahu, and there's going to be Tchis and Mesim, and you're going to have Moshe and Aaron. You're going to have great Chachamim then. So why does he have to make a Tanai? Why can't they just reenact the Takana? So the Yerushalmi answers on this, because Beis Hamikdash could be built before Bias HaMashiach.
I see.
Okay. Now take a look at the Tosfos Yom Tov, what he says here. It says on page 2, he says, V'nira li taima, the reason why he had to make a Tanai is Midamaskina Beper Kama de Beitza, we see there's a Gemara in Beitza, Daf Hey Amud Beis. The Chol Davar Sheba Minyan Tzarich Minyan Acher Latiroi. Any takana that the Chachamim make needs another sitting, another group of Chachamim.
It's greater number actually.
Right. It doesn't have to be greater, but
well, if we want to change there, we have to be greater than the wisdom and number.
Okay, but the minyan doesn't necessarily mean number of people. It could mean number of years, but they have to be greater than them. Now, so these Chachamim have to overturn. They have to actually sit down and overturn something.
The Maharal says that even Eliyahu himself can change the Gezerah. Eliyahu would need a bigger amount of Chachamim who are greater than those.
Okay, that's a good point.
Now it does say so. We see how our Gezerah is.
Upirish Rashi afilu ira davar she'ata yochel lahoyres by heter. Even if the reasons change, the circumstances change, and you would think, okay, now the takana doesn't apply anymore.
We still keep it 2 day yom even though it doesn't apply anymore.
Exactly. So v'loimer ein takana is meaning the rishon oy medis. You say, oh, the old takana doesn't apply anymore. Afilu hachi aser ad shehitiruhu chachamim beferish, until the chachamim actually get together and are matirit bekibutz chachamim ad kan. Since no takana becomes batal on its own, but you need to have another minyan. So those who made the original takana were afraid maybe the later generation won't be so great. So therefore they said this Tanai. And he says, goes on to say, I'm not going to read inside, but he says the Rambam in Perek Beis Maamrim says this halacha, that even if the tam becomes batal, you can't annul it until you have a greater bezdin.
What was the takana made? Would you just remind? What was
they made a takana by Meister Sheni, not Meister Sheni, by the Keren Rabbi.
What's Keren Rabbi?
Keren Rabbi is the 4th year of a vineyard, the 4th year of fruits of a field or vineyard. After it becomes orla for 3 years, the 4th year is bring it to Yerushalayim or redeem it. And the Chachamim said you have to bring it to Yerushalayim if you're within 1 day. You can't just redeem it, because they wanted people to bring fruits to Yerushalayim. But then,
why fruits to Yerushalayim? Because
they wanted to make the shuk, the marketplace in Yerushalayim, beautiful, lots of fruit. But then, when the Churban Beis Hamikdash happened, they said, okay, better not to bring it to Yerushalayim, better to redeem it. That was the takana, because they didn't want.
Well, you still have to redeem fruits today with orla.
Even today, you have to redeem it. They made this takana not to bring it to Yerushalayim, and then they said, but if the Beis Mikdash gets built, then it's going to automatically come back into effect. They built it into the takana. And he goes on to say, the Rambam says in Hilchos Mamrim that even the tam is batal, even the reason is batal, the takana is not batal until an actual bezdin is greater gets up and annuls it. Okay, so now the Ravid argues on the Rambam over there. He says, a Ravid shehisig olav ve'omer shekol shenis batal tam takana ein sarch sheyeh bezdin mevatal gadol min hamisachnim. The Ravid says, no, you don't have to have a greater bezdin. And if you look on page 4 of the sheets, I have the Rambam and the Ravid copied off here, and the Ravid has a kasha from this exact din of the shuk of Yerushalayim with Paris. He says the original takana was made, let's say, a couple hundred years before the Churban, and then Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was mevatel, and the Ravid understands that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai wasn't on the same madrega as those people, so how could he be mevatel? So you see that that since the tam was batal, it's batal automatically. And the Rambam will answer, like the Kesef Mishnah says, that maybe he was on the same madrega. How do you know? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai
but he still wasn't a greater number. He was only one. The chum were more.
Okay, so he had his bezdin. He had 70 chachamim and Yavne. He had people.
I see.
All right. So that's the machlokes Rambam and Ravid. So the Tosfos Yontif has a problem over here. That in this Mishnah, how's the Ravid going to learn? Bishlam, like the Rambam learns that if the tam is batal, the takana is still in effect until another bezdin comes, and that's why they had to build the Tanai into the takana. But according to the Ravid, that if the tam is batal, it automatically goes off. So then why did the Chacham have to make this Tanai? He says on page 3 over here, actually it's on page 2 still. He says, how's the Ravid going to learn this Mishnah? He says, in the second part that I highlighted here, near the bottom, he says, "Mizev badai kashel arrived the hoyel v'atnai atzmoi loy haya el lichshibana beis hamikdash u'mimela batal atam." When the Beis Hamikdash gets built, the tam is batal, so we became matzorech l'tanai. Why do you have to have a tanai? V'gam bazeh yesh li lahalitz ba'adoi. But I can answer up the Ravid. He says, Mizeh, ha-Yerushalmi. From this Yerushalmi, Shebeis HaMikdash, Asi Libanis Koydem Malchus Beis David. The Nimsa, the Yerushalmi is not saying that maybe the Beis HaMikdash will be built with Mashiach. It will be built before Mashiach. So the Nimsa She'ad Malchus Beis David, Yihu La'oivim, K'tzas Mimshala Aleinu. The nations will still have power over us a little bit before Bias HaMashiach.
Design is therefore. It's totally in the Zionist.
Because they say the nations won't have any power over us before Bias HaMashiach. Right. So he says they'll have some power over us, like it was in the time of Vayasheni. The first, the beginning, the first, let's say 200 years, the Persians period, and then after that the Greek period for 180 years. There was no Jewish sovereignty. It was like a province of the empire. There was 100 years, 103 years. There was the Malchus Chashmonaim. That was independence. That was sovereignty. But until then,
Rome took over.
Right. So he says, when the nations ruled over us, and they're in Yerushalayim, then the reason for the Takana, not to beautify Yerushalayim, is not really batal, because really the enemies are still ruling over it. So that's why they had to make a Tanai, because if not for the Tanai, the later Bezdin would not have been able to reinstate the Takana, because they're not as great and the time is not batal. The Tosfos Yantiv is going a step further than the Yerushalmi, basically. The Yerushalmi just says that the Beis HaMikdash will come down from heaven, maybe, I don't know, something will happen. The Beis HaMikdash will be here before Mashiach. But the Tosfos Yantiv is mashma that we're going to build it, because he says that the Oivim will have Ketzas Shlita, they'll have some Shlita. It's mashma we have some Shlita too. The point of it, the Tosfos Yantiv takes the Yerushalmi one step further, that he says, first of all, that there's going to be Ketzas Shlita, not full Shlita of the Oivim. And also he says that Ben David won't be here yet, because he says that otherwise if he would be here, then there wouldn't be a problem. Alright?
Of course.
Okay. So now, let's go right there. Hinei b'yafei soyar b'Bereishis Rabbah Perek Chaf Vav. We're in the next paragraph of Vayoel Moshe, okay?
Yeah.
This is in the Medrash Rabbah, Bereishis Chaf Vav. Hevi Maharan Chisdoi.
Who was that?
I don't know, but you know who the Yafei Soyar was, Reb Shmuel ben Yitzchak Yaffa. So like 1600s, and this person he's bringing down must be a little earlier. If you look inside, I have it copied here, in page 5.
The Medrash Rabbah?
Medrash Rabbah, but it's not the regular Medrash, it's the Medrash of the Yafei Soyar. And he says on the side here that the Medrash really says here, Ein Misa La'asi Lavai. There's not going to be any death when in the future. So when's this future time when there's not going to be any death? So this is what he discusses here. Is there going to be Tchis and Mesim at the same time as Mashiach, or later, or earlier, or whatever? So he says, Ki haran chisdoi b'sefer Or Hashem. He's the author of Or Hashem. Whoever he is, he's the author of Or Hashem. Klal Daled Perek Aleph. Kosav Shemimash Kosav b'Masechta Yuma. He brings the ride from Masechta Yuma. We'll just see it in Vayoel Moshe because it's easier that way. He says, Shemimash Mevur b'Shas Yuma Daf Hey Gabe Ketzad Malbishon La'asi Lavai. The Gemara has a shaila here when you have a Cohen Gadol and a Cohen Hedyot to put on their big Kahuna. How do you do it? Do you put on all the Kohen Gadol's begadim and then you put all the Kohen Hedyot's begadim? Or do you go each one at a time? Like one beged on the Kohen Gadol and one beged on the Kohen Hedyot. How do you do it, right?
Yeah.
So the Gemara asks, what do you mean? Maida haba haba. What happened happened. It happened a long time ago, so why should you ask a question about this? So the Gemara says, no, how will we do it when Mashiach comes? So then the Gemara's question is, Shemat Matmiya, the Gemara asks, Moshe and Aaron are going to be there, so what do we have to answer the question now? They'll answer when they come. Okay? So Mavur Bazeh, we see from this, there's not going to be a Beis HaMikdash with Kohanim and Big Kahuna before Moshe and Aaron are here.
Why? Why do you attack Moshe and Aaron?
What do you mean? Because the Gemara is assuming that. Yeah. He's saying, we see the Gemara assumes that. Otherwise the Gemara wouldn't have an answer that, Moshe and Aaron will be here, they'll answer the question for us. No, maybe it'll be built before, and we'll have to answer the question on our own. So how do you, right? So Elamai, you see the Gemara assumed that that when the Beis HaMikdash gets built, there'll be Tchis and Mesim already. The Moshe Mashiach. And he goes on at length to explain whether Tchis Mesim is before or after or at the same time. Many Mefarshim bring this raya from this Gemara in Yuma. This is against the Tosfos Yom that says that the Yerushalmi says that the Binyan Beis Mikdash will take place before Shiach. Okay, so we have basically a machlokes Yerushalmi and Bavli. The
Bavli says the Mashiach will come first at Beis Mikdash?
Before the Beis Mikdash is built, yeah.
Right.
And we'll have Tchis Mesim, we'll have
Moshe we always go by the Bavli when the Bavli Yerushalmi argue.
Yeah. So it's not really a surprise that the Rambam Paskin like it, but
like the Bavli.
Yeah, that Mashiach will build it. It's just the question was that why would the Rambam go into something that's not Negei L'Maisa?
Yeah.
V'nira shedaitam zal. It seems that that the Maharan Chistoi and the Yefei Soyer who brings them down this raya, they don't. The reason why they hold to raya is she'agam she'ef shelidchoik. Even though you could get out of the raya, you could get out of the proof, and you could say shedin zeh shel oisa halbasha eino yala bi'aron u'bonav. That the question the Gemara asked was only by Aaron himself and his sons themselves, but not by other kohanim gedolim. So lachein kasvu behechlet she'iyu az. That's why the Gemara says that they will be around then. But a regular kohen gadol, you could do whatever you want. But obviously, you see, they didn't want to answer that. He says, "Aval kafir nira loy nichalahu lefarish kach." They didn't want to answer that way. Why? Kikol oisan hahalachas shekospa Torah kadosh be'aron uvanov. All the halachas the Torah writes regarding Aaron and his sons, how to put on the big dekuna, mistamig heim gam b'shar kohanim gedolim. They're not just by Aaron and Uvanov; they're by all kohanim gedolim. Gam imein hashayla el al Aaron and Uvanov loy zulas. And if you're going to tell me that maybe no, the question is only about Aaron and Uvanov, then the ka'arele my ka'arele. Then what was the havamina? Why did the Gemara even think for a moment? Lishal was that to ask the question about this al asi lavoy, about something that's going to happen in the future. Boy, Shiur, when they're going to be around, and Vayoel Moshe malasos, they'll tell us what to do. All right, so that's the raya about that the Bavli holds that obviously Beis Mikdash won't be built before Mashiach. Now,
so anyhow, it can't be doing the Bavli with the Yerushalmi. The Bavli always takes back the Yerushalmi.
Right. Now, I'm not going to say it inside, but I have this on page 8. No, I don't see it here. I don't know if I have it here. All right. Now, the next raya is on page 7 of the Maamar Cohen. We'll do that inside first, and then we'll look in the Gemara. Umavur b'Tosfos. Another raya that the Rebbe brings that the Beis Mikdash will be built after Mashiach is from Tosfos. Psachim daf kuf yadal on the base. Dibra maschil echad. The ein chash toy k'shiyibon Beis Mikdash the k'shiyibon Moshe v'Aaron yiyu imanu. Tosfos is talking there about the minig by the Seder that we have two tavshilin. We have a Zroya and a Beitza. Today, that's what we do. So, why do we have a Zroya and a Beitza? Zroya is connected in the Korban Pesach, and Beitza is connected the Korban Chagiga. The Chagiga is Arba Asar. The Chagiga that you bring together with the Korban Pesach. So, Tosfos raised the question, what happens when Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos? On Shabbos, you're not allowed to make a Chagiga. So maybe we shouldn't have the second tafshil by then those years. So Tosfos says no, ein l'chalik. It's the same because once we have the minhag to do it, we do it every year. Take a look. He says he says v'ein shum chash. Don't have a problem. Don't have don't be afraid that imanu oisim if we do the second tafshil, afagav deloy tzarich, the lekel amech Hashem yibana Beis Hamikdash v'yoymer eshtaked asinu zecher lechagiga b'Shabbos v'ashtanami nakribu b'Shabbos. That we're afraid maybe when Beis Hamikdash is built next year, we're going to say, oh, last year there was Erev Pesach was Chal b'Shabbos and we made a tafshil. So this year let's bring the korban chagiga. He says no. The hakrava mesurah is rizim, because bringing a korban is something that's given over to kohanim who are rizim, and ukshibana. And when the Beis Mikdash is built, Moshe v'Aaron yehei imanu. It's not just kohanim; it's going to be Moshe and Aaron. V'leka l'mitay, and we're not going to make any mistakes. Okay. If someone decides they're going to have a minhag not to do the Beitzah in those years, we're not going to stop them. But al kopanim, it's not a chiyuv to do it. So this raya is starker because the first raya we could say, okay, it's only talking about putting on big kahuna on Aaron himself. It's not talking about stam kohanim. But Tosfos is talking about every korban pesach and every korban is brought. So he says, "Lo dibru klal mi habash Aaron b'anav ela mi'asiyas pesach." V'echlitu, and Tosfos says like a certainty. She'iyavshar b'li Moshe v'Aaron. It's not going to happen. The korban pesach is not going to happen without Moshe and Aaron. Umidivrei haTosfos ho'elu he stira gam keim lo'oisen shechashvu la'akriv pesach b'zman hazeh. That from this Tosfos you see, not like those who wanted to bring a korban pesach b'zman hazeh. Terem bias hamashiach.
So we have no practical way. We never shown how to do it. We don't even know how to make the bidei kahuna because we were never shown how to do it or Yirmiyahu.
Right, but we have no choice. We got to do it. So this, what he's referring to here.
You'll do it if you don't have the bidei kahuna. All right, it's the ver chayav karet. So you don't want to over miss the say be chayav karet yourself.
Okay, that's a good point. So what he's referring to here when he says that there were people who wanted to bring the korban pesach, I'm pretty sure he's referring to Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher.
He's talking about the korban pesach.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it inside in a second. He says, "Ukvar harichu b'zeh kama poiskim she'iyasher." The poiskim, many poiskim argued on him, notably Rameir Orbach from Yerushalayim, Im Rabina, and Rabbi Kiveger. Other people argued on him.
Anyhow.
Oh, well, that was one of the problems. Take a look. Lo yeis laharich po. It's not the time to be marich now. So take a look in Drishas Tzion. I copied off the pages here on page 8 and 9. Reb Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher, and this is 1862, and he's writing about his plan to bring korbanos. So take a look what he says here. And he was a Talmud of Rabbi Kiveger, and he asked all his questions to him. And Rabbi Kiveger wasn't maskim.
So he wanted to get his own Rebbe?
Yeah. Take a look what he says.
Yeah.
He says, "V'an v'oimer, hein b'tchilas ha'ashkafa yeshnon shalosh manias." There are three reasons not to bring kodshim bizman hazeh. And v'omnam es kulam nisto ruach, but all of them can be slugged up. He says, "Kefi asher nevar be'ezet Hashem mipi sfarim and mipi stoifrim." Ukefi asher iskimu al yadi, he says, they agreed to me. Achar machlefos michtavim asher atikim b'soif ma'amarenu v'zeh. Shnei gedoylei olam noichei nefesh. Two gedoylei olam who are now nifter. He says, Rabbi Kiveger and the Chasam Sofer. I'm not going to read everything inside, but basically he says, these two gedolim agreed to me. But what he means to say is they didn't agree. They raised objections to what he said. And here are the objections. The first objection is Aleph. Ki kashem ma'oy livnois mikdash kitfnasay asher miyad Hashem aleihem hiskil the mustav nisay. It's very hard to build it exactly the way you're supposed to, the right place.
Well, because if you don't, you can't bring it. Right.
It's got to be in the exact place. And base shekulanu tmei mesim ve'ein lanu efer par l'tarenu. We're all Tommy Mace, so that he has an answer that we're,
majority.
Tu mahutra b'korban tzibur.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Gimel, limsoi kohen kosher miyuchas. This is what you said.
Yeah.
How are you going to find a kohen miyuchas? Mizera aharon. Turn the page.
How do you fight the others?
So take a look.
Only the first one you can reasonably fight, but that's other.
The first one you can't really fight either. He says.
Yeah.
He says you can bring korban. I'm not going to read everything, but he says you can bring it without a base of mikdash. You bring a korban without a base of mikdash, even without building it. And he says v'al zeh in the middle of the page. V'al zeh heishiv Rabbeinu Hagadol Moreinu Rabbi Kiva Eger Zatzal. Hanal eich noidam makom hamizbeach. How are you going to know exactly where the mizbeach is? Asher hutzrachnu hutzruchu neviim was there by Sheni. When they built by Sheni, they had to have neviim tell them where the base of mikdash was.
How do you build otherwise?
So they didn't just do it by measuring.
Yeah.
It says Gam shekasha lismoich al dal that's boy shalanu. Even if we measure, how are we going to measure? Our 4 fingers may not be the same as their fingers. In beinanis or mitzum tzamas, we don't know exactly what's considered a regular tefach or a mitzum tzemas. The heshabti lo, and I
answered back to my own Rebbe.
Yeah, I answered back to Rabbi Kiveger. Sheyesh raya brura min hamedrash shaloi b'mikdash rishon shaloi k'mikdash rishon mikdash sheni. That the second base of mikdash is different. Why? You're going to say the first base of mikdash was totally destroyed. The second one, the Koisel Maravi is left. And we have a Messiah, the Koisel Maravi is the same Koisel. So he says, therefore, all you have to do is measure from the Koisel Maravi, and that's how you know where
what a silly
everything is. Now, the problem with that is that we don't know. We don't have in Shas or in the Rambam anywhere the measurements of where the Azar was in Har Bayis. Har Bayis was 500 amas by 500 amas. But
that's
where
big. It seems to be a lot bigger than the.
No. So what's there today is much bigger than that because Hur is added on. First of all, so the southern Koisel is not the Koisel of the original Azara.
Why? Because Hur is added on to it.
Hur is added on in the south. Yeah. That whole place where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is and everything, that's all added on.
Yeah.
Secondly, the Koisel Maravi is Taka the Koisel Maravi. That was never added on. But the problem is that how far is it from the Koisel Maravi till the Azara, until the Mizbeach? That we don't have a Messiah on. But this Tosfos Sachim shows that Tosfos held like Davar Pashat that we're not going to build the Beis Hamikdash, or even without building the Beis Hamikdash, just bringing the Korban Pesach Bisman Zeh, like these people who try to smuggle in the goat.